5 tiny changes that can make you more productive. Wish you were more productive? Want to stop procrastinating and putting off the things you really need and want to be doing? Join the queue. The good news, though, is that by making very small changes to your routine and workflow, you can actually have a profound impact on your overall productivity. Listen up and let's go through 5 tiny changes that will do just that. 1. Start tomorrow's work. Before you clock off for the day, make a start on tomorrow's work. Starting a new job first thing in the morning is extremely hard. If you've already made a start, on the other hand, it's much easier to dive back into the flow. 2. Make tea and coffee your reward. Many of us waste a surprisingly amount of time on trips to the kitchen. Instead of doing that, make a new rule that you can only enjoy a hot drink once you've answered all your emails, written X amount of words, or completed another goal of your choosing. You'll spend far less time hanging around waiting for the hot water to boil, and you'll be motivated to work faster. 3. Start on the task you most want to do. The hardest part of work is starting to be productive. If your first job is something you hate doing, you'll find yourself putting it off and not being productive. Swap that for something you do want to do, and at least you'll find it easier to get stuck in. 4. Listen to the same tune. Find a piece of music you know extremely well, such as an album, and then play it on repeat while listening to noise-canceling headphones. This is a trick used by Matt Mullenweg of WordPress fame. You'll find that your brain tunes out the music because it knows it so well, effectively creating a form of sensory deprivation. 5. Just start. If it's a blank page that greets you at work and you need to type, code, or enter data, then you might suffer from some form of writer's block. The key to getting over this is to just start writing. You can also go back and perfect it later. But the most important thing is to start doing something. Making these tiny changes to your routine and workflow will collectively make you much more productive. That's what they call Kaizen in Japan. 5 tiny changes that will make you happier. Is happiness something you are either blessed with or not? Or is it something you can work toward like abs? The good news is that in most cases, happiness falls into the latter category. By changing the world around you and your reactions to it, you can become much more content and happy on a daily basis. The key is to start with small changes that are easy to implement. This is what we call Kaizen. 1. Write down 3 things. Start and end your day by writing down 3 things that you are grateful for. This helps to cultivate a gratitude attitude and helps draw our attention to what is good in our life rather than what we are dissatisfied with. 2. Find one way to treat yourself. Even for 10 minutes, find a way to treat yourself. That might mean reading a bit of your book, or it might mean eating something you're excited for. Ideally, pick something that won't cost you anything. Instead of buying a book then, you might find one you already have but haven't read. This has the added bonus of reminding us we already have a lot of things we want and need. 3. Compliment a friend or relative. We often feel better when we do things for other people, and this can be profoundly impactful to our mood for hours to come. While you probably don't have the time or budget to dedicate your life to charity, what you can do is to send a friend a message letting them know you're thinking of them, or to drop a compliment into a conversation with someone. Watch their reaction, it's highly rewarding. 4. Place a picture of your family by the bed and put the TV on in the morning. Reportedly, humans evolved living in small tribes, and that is the setup that makes us psychologically happiest. Most of us are very isolated today, which actually leads to feelings of loneliness and sadness. 5. Smile. Smiling more is something that can make you happier through a psychological process called facial feedback. In short, our mood changes to match our expression. Smile more, and you'll also make those around you happier. This in turn means they'll react to you better, which means you'll have more positive interactions. Next time you're at a cashier, try giving a big warm smile to the attendant. It's small and free, but it makes a big difference for them and you. Do this for just 1 minute a day and your life will change. 1 minute can change your life. Don't believe me? Then you probably haven't heard of Kaizen. This is the very trendy concept of applying minute changes to a workflow or even your life in order to enact a massive, cumulative change. Normally, that means looking at parts of your routine that you can improve, ways to save tiny bits of cash, or ways you can save a little time at work. The result here being that after several months of this, you end up much richer with much more time. But 1 minute? Can even the cumulative effects of 1 minute of effort really do anything for you? In this presentation, you'll see that it can. Here are 4 1-minute habits that can totally transform your life. 1. Make your bed. This small thing starts your day on a positive and productive note and gives you a clean room to come home to. It's ideal for training yourself to adapt good habits. 2. Talk to a stranger. Who knows what you could learn from a random person in 1 minute if you strike up a conversation? Moreover, practicing talking to strangers will make you more social, charismatic, and persuasive. And that's a game changer. 3. Run. Yes, running for 1 minute actually has been shown to have major health benefits. You're not going to lose a ton of weight, but it will strengthen your bones through minor impacts, which in turn can prevent age-related decline. 4. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Many of us have so much to appreciate in life, from our physical possessions to our loved ones to our health. Yet we spend so long just longing for the things we don't have. So write down 3 things you're grateful for every day. This will redirect your attention to those things, such that you feel happier and more content all day long. 5. Breath training. Get yourself a breathing trainer and breathe into it for 1 minute a day. This will strengthen the intercostal muscles that you use to control your lungs and will essentially make you more efficient at breathing. The result? You'll have stronger lungs for cardio, more oxygen will reach your brain, and you'll sleep better. Those are huge benefits for just 1 minute of barely noticeable exercise. So then, it turns out that 1 minute really can change your life. Imagine what you could do with 5. How to apply Kaizen in your relationships. If you have any interest in productivity, project management, or self-improvement, then chances are you will have heard of Kaizen. Kaizen is the Japanese concept of gradual improvement. It means taking lots of very small steps toward a goal that will have a cumulative snowball effect over time. Eventually, those tiny differences add up to something extremely meaningful. But while Kaizen is popular in the business and self-development world, it also has applications outside of those areas. For example, you might just be able to use Kaizen in your relationships to become happier and more satisfied than ever before. Kaizen for couples. Relationships are hard. As much as Hollywood might try to tell us otherwise, relationships do not work out immediately. Rather, we need to work at them and constantly improve them with time. Likewise, we need to stick with them when things are not going perfectly and fight through those bad patches. This is not a mark of a bad relationship. In fact, it is a very healthy relationship that is able to acknowledge its shortcomings and work on them. That's where Kaizen comes in. Take an honest appraisal of your relationship with your partner in a judgment-free way. Ask what is going well and what could be better. Perhaps you don't get enough time together. Maybe you feel you aren't having enough sex. Or maybe you feel that one of you does more chores than the other. Maybe you aren't doing enough new, interesting things together. You'll then apply Kaizen by looking at each of these points and the circumstances surrounding them. You'll ask, how can you act to make that thing better? What small change can you make to your routine that will inject some more novelty or give you a bit more time together? For example, you might make the rule that 1 night a week you don't watch any television. Or perhaps you agree that you will cook together instead of taking it in turns. If the romance has gone, then you might both make a pact to spend a little longer looking your best for each other in the morning. These are very small changes, but over time, they can add up to make an immense difference. And the rewards you can reap here are gigantic. There's benefits to applying a little Kaizen to any area of your life. How to break a bad habit in 3 easy steps. Building a better you is not just about introducing new positive habits. Just as important is to remove the bad habits that are wasting your time, damaging your health, or losing you money. The only problem is that habits are hard to break. That's why they're habits. The good news is that there are ways you can break bad habits if you know how. In this presentation, we'll look at 3 simple steps that can help you bust those bad habits for good. 1. Change your environment. One of the most important things to do if you want to break a bad habit is to change your environment. That means you should remove yourself from your usual location. The reason is that your environment will be filled with reminders and triggers that will make you more likely to engage in the negative behavior. That is why many people trying to recover from addiction will go into rehab. There, nothing will remind them of their old life and behavior. Of course, you can come back again when you're done. Trying to quit smoking? Wait until you're going on holiday and you will have the best luck. 2. Find new habits. One of the very most important things to do if you want to break a bad habit is to replace it with something new. Otherwise, you will still be continuously reaching for that cigarette or looking for that cake. You need a new way to get your dopamine hit. Of course, it's entirely up to you what your new habit should be, but make sure it gives you a similar feeling and that it's something you really want to do, such that the urge is able to win over the habit with a little help from you. 3. Take it day by day. Kaizen is the Japanese concept of gradual improvement. This idea applies nicely to kicking habits, because it tells us that instead of trying to go cold turkey on day 1, we should instead gradually seek to improve our condition. For instance then, instead of quitting smoking entirely, you might just smoke 1 less cigarette daily. Likewise, instead of trying to end procrastination altogether, you might set a timer and try and keep it to no more than 10 minutes. This helps you introduce an easier version of the habit you eventually tend to form, which allows you to lay down and strengthen the neural pathways you are going to need. How to create new habits in 3 easy steps. Forming new habits can change your life. After all, we are simply summations of the things we do repeatedly. Forming those habits is the hard part, however, which is why it's useful to know some simple steps you can take to ensure that you keep doing the things you want to do. Reminders and notes. There are many different apps and devices that can greatly help you with note-taking and organization. Great examples include Todoist and Google Assistant. Here you can write down notes and reminders that will help you to do everything from taking pills to taking the trash out. This might sound like a small thing, but in fact it can completely change your life for the better as you become more organized and more on top of your daily tasks. By ensuring you get reminded, you can avoid forgetting to follow through with your habit. This makes a huge difference, particularly at the start, when you're still trying to ensure that new behavior becomes ingrained. If you don't want to rely on technology or written notes, then try using physical prompts. To remind yourself to floss, for example, you could leave the floss in the sink. That way you'll see it whenever you go to wash your hands. Tiny habits. Another thing to consider is that a small habit is far easier to stick to than a large habit. That is why the concept of the tiny habit is so popular. This means, for example, that you will aim to only floss 1 tooth. That might sound ridiculous, but the idea is that the simple act of flossing becomes normal this way, such that you can gradually increase the amount. From a neuroscience point of view, it actually makes a lot of sense. Other examples might include washing just 2 plates or doing 20 press-ups. 66 days. Now you're being reminded to engage in what is ostensibly a very short and easy task on a daily basis. Over time, this behavior should become more and more automatic. How long do you need to keep it up? The old myth is that it takes 30 days to form a new habit. But in fact, more recent research suggests that it is closer to 66 days for most people. Either way, if you can keep up this new habit for a set amount of time, it will give you something to aim for. And 66 days is as good a target as any. How to get rich by saving tiny bits of money. Kaizen is an approach to business and self-improvement that involves making small changes over a long period of time that will ultimately add up to having a large impact. This makes a lot of sense when it comes to saving money. Saving just a little money every day can potentially add up to make a big impact on your life. In this presentation, we'll look at some examples. Be more efficient. Energy efficiency is very popular at the moment due to the recent publicity for global warming. However, it's not just the planet you'll be saving, but your hard-earned cash too. Look into using up less water when you run the bath, less energy when you use your lights or boil the kettle, and in general, less on all of your bills. The good news is that there are lots of ways you can do this, from buying more efficient machines to finding ways to keep your home warmer and to use less water. Travel smart. We spend a lot of money traveling, and often that money is spent unnecessarily. There are many ways you can cut down on these regular expenses, however, from choosing to cycle or walk places to going in groups on a coach so that you can split the cost to using less petrol when you drive. Sell stuff. Look around your home at all the things that you have that you haven't used for months or even years. Ornaments in boxes, old DVDs, old CDs, and the chances are that most of this stuff you won't use again for months or years either. So sell some. Okay, it's not really saving money, it's making it. But if you think of this as making back some of your daily expenses, then it's really a good way to improve your ratio and keep your bank balance happy. Save your change. People waste so much change, it's unreal. And if you kept all of it in a little pot of some sort, then at the end of the month or whenever, you'd probably be very surprised to see just how much you'd held on to. Use coupons. Coupons are a fantastic way to get the same things, but for less money. And there are all kinds of things you can get coupons for if you go to the right site. Then, of course, there are other cheaper alternatives to buying normally, such as getting things on offer, buying used, etc. Make a budget. Having a budget works wonders for your overall finances because it ensures you're able to stick to a specific amount of cash each day, which will help you to then know precisely how much cash you'll have at the end of each month. Surprisingly, just having a budget will help you to save money, and especially if you keep track of your spending too. The key then is to automatically transfer all these little savings into a savings account every month and keep assessing your budget and looking at more areas where you can save a little more without impacting on your quality of life. Small things you should stop doing right now. Kaizen is the process of continual improvement. It means doing lots of small things that take little time or effort, so that they will eventually add up to have huge benefits over time. A simple example is saving $1 a day, so that you save $365 over the course of the year. But Kaizen isn't really the same thing as the tiny habits movement that is also popular right now. It's actually about becoming more efficient through tiny tweaks of your workflow and processes. That means it also includes things you should stop doing. Here are some tiny things that you should stop doing right now, which will have huge benefits to your happiness, health, productivity, and more. Listening? Great. Stop obsessing over negative thoughts. Find yourself replaying negative things that have happened during the day that you can do nothing about, then just remind yourself next time to change tune and think about something else. Not only is this a waste of time, but it puts you in a negative headspace. Stop getting coffee and tea repeatedly. There's nothing wrong with tea and coffee. The problem is when you use getting tea and coffee as an excuse not to do any actual work. Keep an eye on how many trips to the kettle you're making. Stop apologizing. If you're one of those people constantly apologizing for everything, then this is the habit to cut out. Apologizing makes you appear guilty and actually makes other people feel resentful in many cases. Learn to cut this habit out. Stop getting on your phone every 2 minutes. If you get your phone out every time you go to the bathroom, every time you're in a queue, and any time you wait for your computer to load, that's something to fix. Try switching to a black and white screen, and you'll find yourself instinctively get it out less. Stop watching junk TV. It's actually not harmless. It puts you in an unproductive, uncreative headspace. Watch something stimulating and interesting, and you'll feel much better. Stop spending money on unnecessary subscriptions. If you haven't watched Netflix in the last month, then you can get rid of it. There are other ways to enjoy an evening if you're ever stuck. And the same goes for that gym membership you never use. You'll save a lot of money, and it takes 2 minutes or less. The Kaizen approach to dieting. Kaizen is the Japanese concept of improvement that preaches that we should make small, almost imperceptible changes to our routines and lifestyles if we want to see big improvements over time. The good news is that this is easy to do when it comes to losing weight. It just means looking for small opportunities to cut calories that you'll hardly notice, but which can add up to a big collective difference. In this presentation, we'll share some powerful examples. Butter. Butter is essentially just lard. That's right, pure fat that you willingly spread onto your food in order to increase moisture. Unsurprisingly, it's also not terribly good for you. So if you're searching for a way to dramatically decrease fat in your diet, you can do so by just avoiding butter, as well as margarine and everything else on your toast. After a while, you get used to eating ham on your bread dry, or having spreads instead like tuna paste. Oil. Likewise, you should keep oil away from your frying pan, and you should definitely keep oil away. While oil can prevent sticking, the reality is that if you heat the pan up slowly and use a little water, there is more than enough oil in your meat and moisture in your sauce to do this job for you. Sugar. If you can avoid adding sugar to any of your foods, whether it's a cup of tea or a bowl of fruit, then you'll find this completely changes your whole diet. Not only is that a huge amount of carbs now removed from what you eat, but it's also a great way to start getting used to blander tastes and remove your sweet tooth. Desserts in restaurants. Having meals out from time to time isn't all that bad, but the insanely indulgent desserts most places serve up are. You can avoid this occasional problem by asking for a cup of coffee or latte when everyone else has cake. You'll feel much better for it, but the coffee, and the usual free chocolate, will help you to avoid feeling left out or unsociable for not joining in. Soda drinks. If you drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi, then you're doing untold damage to your teeth and your weight, consuming the equivalent of 2 Cadbury's cream eggs in sugar. Don't think that sugar-free versions get a pass either. They trigger an insulin reaction that can leave you craving sugar. Avoid soda drinks altogether then, and instead drink water, milk, and fruit juice. You've been writing goals all wrong. Here's what you need to know. Writing goals is very important if you want to make yourself a success. You see, in order to be a success, you need to know what it is you want to be a success in, and you need to define that success. You can be the fastest walker in the world, but you won't get very far if you don't know where you're heading. Even just the process of writing your goals brings you one step closer to achieving them, as it makes them real and physical by putting them on paper, rather than remaining hypothetical and just dreams. But how do you go about writing these goals and making ones that you are actually likely to stick to? In this presentation, we will look at the answers to those questions. Use software. Using goal-setting software or goal-setting worksheets is a good idea to help you formulate your goals, especially if you're struggling. Goal-setting software and goal-setting worksheets are created by people who know what they're talking about and how to go about writing goals. This therefore enables you to structure your goals in a way that is essentially tried and tested. Make sure you really want them. Before you start filling out goal-setting worksheets, though, you need to know the kind of thing you want to achieve and what your chosen field is going to be. In other words, you need to decide what your passion is that you intend to follow. This is very important, as sticking to a goal requires you to be highly focused and dedicated, and that means you have to really want it. Break it down. You need to break down your big, lofty, and ambitious goals into smaller steps, and ideally, break these all the way down into things that you can do on a regular basis. So for instance, this might mean that if you want to build a better physique, your most basic level goal would be to work out at least 5 times a week for 6 months. If you stick to this basic and easy to control goal, then you should find that the overall ambition takes care of itself, and that you end up getting what it is that you want. Start simple. Accept that working out at least 5 days a week is a very hard goal, even though it might not seem that way at first. Better then is to commit to working out just twice a week for 20 minutes. This is the Kaizen approach to continual improvement, and it has been proven effective in countless scenarios. Keep them on your mind. Finally, make sure that these goals are constantly on your mind and constantly in front of you. One of the best ways to do this is to simply have them written somewhere that you'll be able to see them, or several places you'll be able to see them and where you'll encounter them regularly. Get a Post-it note and stick it to your desk.